Hello, everybody, and welcome back to A Storyteller's Role. I'm your host, David Lanier, and this is A Storyteller's Role. Today, we're at our midpoint. We're at the fourth installment of turning Star Wars A New Hope, Episode 4, into a template for a tabletop role-playing game adventure. Specifically, we're going to use it for Dungeons and Dragons because Dungeons and Dragons happens to be the most popular. It's been around since 1974. Here's a picture of the first edition cover for Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, which is the first edition I really got into. There were other editions. There was the basic edition. I played that. I didn't like it. There was I guess they call them chainmail roll. I don't know what they call them really. They were these little pamphlets. There were three of them in a box, and they were about that big, and they were really thin. I didn't really particularly care for those now, and they're now worth $750 for some reason. I don't know why. Nostalgia plays a big role in a lot of things for collectibles. But aside from collectibles, this book I bought in 1977, I paid $12 for. It was a lot of money back then, and it's a lot of money now. They charge like $70 for these books now. We have been talking about the 7-point plot structure. We've been talking about the Shachter Singer principle a little bit. We're talking about hope and fear, comedy and tragedy, and all of that. So let's review. You see, when we have an audience in front of us, the audience wants to hear a story or be told a story or shown a story. That's what the audience is doing. We're here to entertain them. That's our job, entertain you. So we have the 7-point plot structure. We have the hook, which is what brings people into the game. Then we have plot point 1, which is our hero's moment to go, oh, I have the power within me. Great. That's great. But they still sort of hesitate to go anywhere with it. So we have pinch 1, which is their point of no return. They can't go back home. They have to take their new superpower or whatever it is, and they have to develop it. We then get to the midpoint. The midpoint is usually when we have our B story. This is usually when we run a romantic interlude or some other thing in the movies, but it doesn't have to be. Then we have plot point 1, or rather plot point 2, which is right after the midpoint, and it's kind of where we take away some hope, right? We dash the hero's hopes. We give them just enough to continue forward or whatever, but we dash their hopes a little bit. Maybe the big bad evil guy escapes. Maybe they discover that they didn't really escape the Death Star. They were allowed to escape, that kind of thing. 6 is pinch 2. Pinch 2 is that moment when we take all hope away and we take we really turn up the heat for our hero. It's when Luke Skywalker loses his navigation system. He has to use the Force. Darth Vader's on his 6. He's really screwed. That's pinch 2. And then we have our resolution. When we tell a story, we start up at the opposite end of the spectrum of where we want our hero to be at the end. So if we're telling a comedy, we start down here. And if we're telling a tragedy, we start up there. Those are the dystolic and systolic points or hope and fear cycles, comedy and tragedy, that we're going to be cycling people through. There are 9 basic beats or story beats that we can pay attention to that will help us navigate the audience's expectations, which is what we're trying to do, because we are, after all, trying to entertain them. That's the purpose. We're not trying to pander to them. No. We're creating the story. We run the story. We run the stage. We're not pandering to the audience. That's important. We are entertaining them. And if they're not entertained by what we have to offer, there's another venue for them to go to, and there's the door. It's just not your audience. That being said, you don't want to be adversarial to your audience, and your players do count. Ah, first three beats: procedural, dramatic, and commentary. Anticipation, all games. Gratification. Bring, down, bring. Pipe, players. Questing, right? Reveal, role play. Those are the 9 beats. Players do count, all games bring, players questing role play. That's your acronym for remembering them. We went over what they were. We're not going to go over them again. We don't need to beat them to death. We're just going to quickly review. Gratification is a beat in which the storyteller puts something in just for the audience, just a little bit of fun, right? The bar scene where they're playing music at the bar. It fills out the scene and it gives us the impression of more going on and some festivities going on, but it doesn't move the plot one way or the other. It's just music in the bar scene. Nothing really happened. It wasn't instrumental to anything. That's a gratification beat. An anticipation beat, as we've already explained, is when Popeye eats his spinach, Superman takes off his glasses and puts on the cape and is ready to go kick butt. A commentary beat is kind of like when Wolverine says, wouldn't it be great if we had like spandex uniforms that made us look more superhero-ish? Right? It's a sort of a side throw, fourth wall break towards the audience. Dramatic beat is when you have to convince somebody of something with words and dialogue, such as when Luke Skywalker has to convince Han Solo that he's going to make more money if he helps them save the princess and get his ship off of the Death Star. Since he's stuck anyway, he might as well help. Freaking rogues. Your procedural beat is something that has to happen. R2-3PO have to escape the Death Star or the ship with the rebel plans. If they don't, there is no story. A question beat obviously is pretty obvious. We have a question for the audience. The reveal is when we reveal the question that the audience was questioning. Why are they building another duplicate of a bank? Building the duplicate of the bank would be the pipe. We see something going on and then we wonder what it's about, but we'll figure it out throughout the course of the story. And those are your 9 beats. Those are your 7 plot structures. Those are your Schachter-Singer principle. That's everything that I've covered. And now go tell great stories. Oh, wait, you need more. I always knew that you needed more. Well, Pilgrim, you're going to get more. Why am I doing this? I'm doing this because at its heart and soul, any tabletop role-playing game, I don't care what it is. It could be Dirks and Daggers. It could be Tunnels and Trolls. It could be Gamma World. It could be Traveler. It could be Vampire the Masquerade. Any storytelling tabletop role-playing game is about storytelling and role-playing in worlds of fill in the blank. For Dungeons and Dragons, it's about telling stories in worlds of swords and sorcery. To quote their 2014 publication, let's see, got it right here. To quote their 2014 publication, Introduction to the Player's Handbook, written in 2014, the Dungeons and Dragons role-playing game is about storytelling in worlds of swords and sorcery. It shares elements of childlike games of make-believe. Like those games, D&D is driven by the imagination. It is about picturing the towering castle beneath the stormy night sky and imagining how an adventurer might react to the challenges that scene presents. To me, that's probably one of the best examples or uh, explanations of what a tabletop role-playing game really is. And you really don't need much more than a simple little map to draw people's attention in. That map is something crude that I drew, and it's not very sophisticated, but it's enough to bring a certain amount of attention to the table. And that's all you need is a certain amount of attention to get a hold of your audience's willfully suspended disbelief. And you have about 5 minutes within which to do that. I played during the pandemic. I had the golden opportunity to play alongside some brilliant young men. These young men had neurodivergent challenges. They were at a loss for some things that people take for granted in our normal daily lives. Emotional expression, for one thing. They had a very difficult time expressing themselves with words or demonstrating it in front of people. They weren't shy. They were autistic. But that's a superpower in my book. And I felt that they had the chops. And when you impart the dramatic arts and therapy tools of improvisational role play correctly, they can enable people to create new neural pathways through the mechanism of neuroplasticity and heal from some severe trauma and other neurodivergent disorders. It's a proven science and there's a proven track record to it. And I personally am going back to school to get a clinical degree in dramatic arts therapy. I'm taking my acting skills and I'm honing them for the clinical profession. That's what I'm doing. That's why you don't see me on screen. That's why you don't see me in the movie theaters. That's why you don't see me, tooting my own horn. These theatrical arts, these dramatic arts, improvisational arts, were originally taught by that woman, Viola Spolin, Viola Spolin, Spolin. She originally taught them at the Jane Addams Hull House Center on the south side of Chicago in the 1930s to immigrants. She taught them as therapy tools, and they were originally therapy tools to help immigrants deal with their daily lives. She taught dramatic arts therapy at the Jane Addams School. You can go look it up if you don't believe me. Her and her son later adapted those tools for the theater. And her son, Paul Sills, went on to create Second City Theater Company. So there's a long history of these tools, and I would wholeheartedly recommend the book, Improvisational Theater, Improvisation for the Theater, 3rd edition. I'll be right back. That book right there, Improvisation for the Theater, 3rd edition by Viola Spolin. You might say, why is it for the theater? It's for the theater because it was originally therapy tools, adapted for the theater. If it wasn't for her, we wouldn't have Second City. If it wasn't for Paul Sills, we wouldn't have Second City, and we wouldn't have Saturday Night Live and all of the other stuff that created this. She's an ancestor of mine. This is something I'm making for a live sort of, well, I'm building a live dragon. Okay, there's the dragon's eye right there. Okay, You don't need much to see that it's a dragon's eye or an eye at all, really. Your imagination will put upon things whatever else is not there. And in telling a story, we want to show, not tell. That's why we're going over the structure of a story and understanding how the story is broken down so that we know the meaty parts of that story. And once we know that, we can really run it well. The proof is in the pudding. As I said, during the pandemic, I had the great blessed opportunity to play alongside 4 young men who had neurodivergent issues. I decided to make one of them the dungeon master, and he'd never role played before. He never game mastered before. He never played Dungeons and Dragons before meeting me. I never met these young men. They live in disparate states. I met one of them who's a good friend of mine now, but before meeting him, we were just playing D&D online. These young men went on to live more fulfilling lives. Thaler, the least expressive one of them, now has a girlfriend, and they run games of their own. Dagan, the DM, got married. TPV got promoted 4 times on his job for improved social skills, being chief among one of those factors. The dramatic arts and therapy tools have the ability to create vast vistas of imaginative worlds. There's more out there than just simply the D&D universe or multiverse. You don't need somebody else to write a book for you to create worlds of your own. We created a world of our own with the concept of the Axis and Ally powers. In our game, Operation Pillow Fort, let's see if I have a map. Right there. We had Ainsvale over here, right there, Ainsvale, which was at war with Coriston, which is down here, where that green part is underneath the runes. Coriston was being attacked because Coriston was full of magical beings, elves, dwarves, trolls, orcs, halflings, humans with, sorcery and magic powers and that kind of stuff, right? And Ainsvale was full of humans that didn't want magic to exist. And Ainsvale was being controlled by an aboleth. And there was another aboleth which was controlling the people of Coriston, and those aboleths were feeding off of the war frenzy and the fear and the lower vibrational things that they were creating. And we discovered that, and we went to stop them. The first thing we decided to do is take all the money. What? We're adventurers, and we like money. But we needed money because we had to resurrect Tim, because Tim knew all about the aboleths, and we accidentally killed Tim. It wasn't our fault per se. I mean, it wasn't like we were directly trying. Anyway, we needed money to resurrect Tim, and Ainsvale decided to invite Coriston to parlay and see if we could find a way to find a truce during this war schism. They were basically setting us up. They were giving us suits made out of pork chops and then putting us in the lion's den. We knew what was going on. So we decided to take them up on their offer to parlay because holy crap, they invited us to stay in this great palace, hotel, really. It was like a Ritz-Carlton, 5-star hotel. And they put us up for the night, and they were gonna like talk to us in the morning and parlay. Well, we'd never been in that kind of luxury before. So we didn't know how to behave ourselves, and we decided to have a bit of fun. And that's what the next episode is all about. It's called Operation Pillow Fort, and I want you, if you would please, to listen to it and listen to it with the following understanding. These young men are picking up the very cornerstones of improvisational theater. Yes, and no, but. I'm not DMing. I didn't make it up. We didn't script anything. We have no idea what's going to happen. We had the vaguest outline, which I just gave you, of what was happening and where we were. And this I named Operation Pillow Fort after the fact. So it's not like we had a plan here. Hmm? We didn't sketch anything out. And these are not professional actors. But listen to them role play. Listen to them have fun. Listen to them come out of their shells as individuals who have neurodivergent challenges. And I challenge you to even know, unless you know what you're looking for or know what to listen for, to tell me that they have any kind of challenges whatsoever. You wouldn't know it to listen to them. That's the fantastic part. That's the beauty part. That's the magic of this. Now, there are many people who would want to just play games and bash monsters and meet with friends and roll dice and whatever, and that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to tell great stories, if you're looking to tell phenomenal stories at your table and have people coming back chomping at the bit for more, well, that's what these videos are all about. And I'm going to give you a template for it. But we're at our midpoint, and I would appreciate it if you would indulge me for just a moment and listen to the next episode, episode 4A, we'll call it, Operation Pillow Fort, so you can see the proof in the pudding, as it were. And then we'll come back and we'll build that template. I promise you, the rest of the episodes will be dedicated to building that entire template. Thank you for all your likes, shares, and subscribes. Please leave a comment down below if you'd like have a question or you want me to cover something. In the meantime, may all your die rolls stay blessed. And don't forget to hit the notification bell. It'll let you know when other episodes are coming online. Appreciate all of you. Have a beautiful and blessed 2025.